enough. I think Saints were also, for most of the game, quicker off the line. They actually had a really good line speed, being a man down. And Wigan had that shocking spell where they just couldn't create anything for large periods of the first half. Which made me also at half time just be thinking Saints playing better. After about 50 minutes, I was saying it's the worst we've attacked all year, given that we've had an extra man for half an hour too. But in the end, we found some touches in attack, didn't we? And I think that was just enough.
I would say so. So, what did the stats tell us on this one?
Wigan made a lot more metres, 384, after having much more of the ball, thanks in part to a favourable 8-12 error count and 5-9 penalty count. Saints were actually able to get an extra clean break and make ground at 0.7 metres per carry, better average gain, as well as an impressive 4% better team tackle success.
Okay, so individually...
So they did work hard for each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who stood out individually for us then?
Joe Burgess with 2 tries and 1 try assist. George Williams with 3 try assists, 118 metres, 3 successful offloads. Liam Farrell with a try and 178 metres. Liam Marshall, 2 tries, 6 tackle balls, 122 metres, 3 clean breaks.
Very impressive for the losing St Helens side.
John Wilkin was one of those who did work hard for his teammates. 44 tackles, 10 marker tackles. Zeb Tyre, 40 tackles, 140 metres, 5 successful offloads. Mark Percival, the ever-present Mark Percival in the stats roundup, 1 try assist, 116 metres. Tommy Makinson a try and 112 metres, and we leave the last word to young Regan Grace. 1 try, 7 tackle balls, 160 metres, 3 clean breaks.
Phenomenal stats on debut. Congratulations to that young man, and congratulations to Wigan for their victory. Okay, the next Good Friday game then, Castleford versus Wakefield, the West Yorkshire derby, the 5 Towns battle mark. High-flying Castleford and impressive Wakefield fought out a 42 points to 24 match, which Castleford won in front of 10,349 people at the Menderhose Jungle.
And we start with Tyler Cass fan said, pretty much won by half-time, but I wanted Cass to kick on and run up a big score. Sadly, our quality went downhill for a lot of the second half, and I wonder if thoughts were already turning to Easter Monday. Wakey had a better second half with Fafita a handful for most of the game.
Fat Boy Rob said, great first half, not so great second half. We were sloppy at times, but still too strong for the Nomads. The forwards have really stepped up in recent weeks, and Junior Moores and Millington were outstanding. Hopefully the backs will be back at their best for Monday at Saints.
Wakey White said, first half barrage by Cass had this one sewn up by the break. Excellent ruck speed combined with some real powerful and skillful running meant Cass were asking questions that Wakey didn't have answers to. Trim fought back with a much improved second half, but the damage was done in a solid win for Cass in the end. Yeah,
that's a good way of summing up the game, really. Wakefield got off to an early start in this one and perhaps could have made something, but Castleford just blitzed them after Wakefield's early score.
Yeah.
And the strength that Castle... I was a bit surprised with the interchange bench shaped up the way it was when they were able to bring on Millington and Moores and kind of make that impact for Cass. But it really shaped the kind of second half of the first half and saw them kick on. Luke Gale, though, I'd like to talk about, because they alluded to this in the Sky commentary as well when I was watching this, but I really think they've got a point. Not everything he puts on sticks, and at the moment that's okay because they're making a lot of opportunities, but if they suddenly start losing some of this pack and don't make the ground that they're making and don't set quite the same platform, that could potentially be a problem for them, because he tries a lot of stuff and he's a good player, but you can see passes not quite going
I think
exactly
it's trying to force some of the stuff that in the first month of the season wasn't being forced, but now that they know they can score as many points as anyone else anyway, that is trying some stuff,
possibly so,
forcing some stuff. It does seem like the play, particularly to the left with Hardacre coming round the back, isn't working as well. Now I don't know if that's
teams are wising up to it, aren't they? It's been their go-to move for much of the season, and they've had some real success with it, haven't they?
But it's been their go-to move for 2 seasons, really. Luke Dawn did it just as well as anyone, didn't he?
Yeah, that's very true. I suppose the only thing you could say to counter that is that they've still got, Ben Roberts and Maggie Chase, and that, Ben Roberts is having a phenomenal season.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not a bad problem to have.
It's not a one-dimensional attack.
No, far from it. What did you make of this one?
Well, I had it on.
As you were recovering, did you have like an ice pack over your head?
No,
Was Emma peeling grapes for you?
I wasn't so bad like that, but I had it on whilst I was kind of putting the stats together on this round because of the Cass blitz in the middle portion of the first half, which we've seen so many times between sort of like the 15th minute and the 35th minute is where they've won most of the games that they've won this year. And
that was true.
You talk about the composition of the side, but I think Powell's most of the time getting it right in terms of who he starts with and who he brings on.
Oh, I agree. I wasn't criticising it. I think it turned out to be a really good move, and that strength off the bench was what got them that period of dominance.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I think like he feels right. We need to go with our sort of athletic mobile offloading pack from the start because the team were playing are fast starters themselves, so we want to go score for score with them. And sometimes I think this team take a while to ease into the game, want to try and win the forward battle, so let's go with straight hard up runners like Springer and Cook and people and Lynch to an extent, and see if we can nullify that threat. And then when they're starting to get gassed, 5 minutes before the normal interchange window, let's throw on Junior Moores after 15 and see him absolutely fucking destroy teams like he has been doing this year.
Absolutely.
People, on Sky, Phil Clark's been sort of talking up Grant Millington quite a lot, and I think Grant Millington's an excellent forward, great all-around player. But for me, the front runner in that cast pack, if you're talking Man of Steel conversation from the cast pack, is Junior Moores. He's been unplayable not just at times, but almost all the time.
He's another one. And the thing is, with this Castleford side, across the park, everyone's having a solid to good year, aren't they? And it's going well for them. So there's even Sonny Lafayette's come in and couldn't buy a start in the NRL. He's come in and he's performing. He's explosive for them as well. So
and they've had like one injury in the backs or one injury at a time in the backs, but no like real disruption to what they've been able to do, and they've got a little bit. They built into their squad last season a little bit of depth in the forward pack, and they're using that sensibly without disrupting anything.
It was a shame for Wakefield in some senses because they've been performing really well in the run up to this game, and I'd hoped that from a neutral point of view they would make more of a fist of it, and I think they were more victims of a sparkling Castleford period of attack rather than necessarily just the architects of their own downfall, because there's some real shining lights in the Wakefield team when they get going. Big day for Feet for me. Is
both his tries were excellent.
Superb, and a skill set that belies his size almost in what he's bringing to the squad. But I mean, their pack more broadly has got it in them to win a lot of games, hasn't it? The experience of guys like Hubie and Allgood and Anthony England and people like that, they're not necessarily absolute world beaters, but cumulatively and
they've all got different strengths that they bring
a lot
bring to the table. You've got to
be really on your ball, and of course they've got exciting players in the likes of Tom Johnston, and Cass were able to get at him quite early in the piece as well, and put him under some pressure. And I think they dragged him out of play a couple of times, and they were hitting him early when the ball got to him. So they were obviously targeting him in terms of don't give him space, don't let him get his speed up, and
when the ball gets to him,
be there to hit him early,
crack him.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I'm not keen to say that Wakefield were necessarily the architects of their own downfall. Well, there are a lot of positives going on in Wakefield.
The Bill Tupu injury early doors, I think, was after about 5 minutes.
It was very early in the piece, wasn't it?
And that
got his head knocked.
Yeah, and I don't know. They didn't look right when they replaced him, and I think that's when Cass started their sort of surge around the 10-minute mark. Was it? I don't know. I can't remember properly. But
it might have been earlier than that, but he was very early in the game anyway.
And then he came back on and he got them back into it, didn't he? He levelled things up. Was it 12-12 pretty about 15-20 minutes?
I think they got back to within a couple of points, haven't they?
So it wasn't like they were competing, like you're saying. In the second half, they drew the second half, didn't? No, they won the second half. They won the second half, 12 points to 8, 12 points to 6. So,
6, So, no, there's a lot of positives for Wakefield. And again, they don't go on to have the best weekend in terms of competition points, but what they do is they're a bit more consistent, and they will be fine. What did the stats tell us on this one?
Well, Cass were convincingly better in a number of areas on the stats. 156 more metres at 0.8 metres per carry better average gain, from 7 to 4 clean breaks, with 2 fewer penalties conceded and a remarkable 8.5% better tackle success rate. All of that made up for the 12-7 error count they were on the wrong side of. So this is the story of Cass that we've said about. They're also a lot more controlled and rigid in the defensive structures this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Individually, who stood out for us?
Well, Grant Millington, he grabbed himself 2 tries, 6 tackle busts. I do think his tries were probably on the easier end of the scale, but great footwork from a big man. Jake Webster, 2 tries, 104 metres. Junior Moores, a try assist, 5 tackle busts, 102 metres. Luke Gale, 3 try assists, so, he's hit and miss, but he's hitting enough to see this cast side home.
Oh, absolutely.
Greg Minikin, 1 try assist, 139 metres.
And for Wakefield?
Well, you mentioned them all, actually. David Fafita, 2 tries, 103 metres. Craig Hubie, 105 metres. Mitch Allgood, 100 metres.
Well, there you go. So we move from West Yorkshire to West Hull. Hull FC having a bit of a ropey time at the moment, and it continued against the improving Leeds Rhinos. Soundly beaten at home, 24 points to 52 by the Leeds side in front of 15,487.
Yeah, and Dr. Bob Phillips said, well, despite the absence of the kind host and Carl Ablett, the Rhinos managed to redefine 52 for the Hull FC fans in an across-the-field display of attacking prowess. Forwards passing, wingers winging, hookers snouting out short-range tries. I'm not shouting it yet, but I think we may be out of the middle eights this year.
Good to have you back, Bob. Scoots 28 Mac, she says, a thoroughly enjoyable match, great strength in attack and a real step up in defence. Definitely show promise for the rest of the season. And after Mighton had played, we went to the KC to watch utter dross. Defence has disappeared, our attack is poor. I think Schofield needs to write about Snyder again, several others while he's at it.
AK Steel 69 said, in conceding over 100 points at home in the last 2 matches, Hull's defence has gone from an early season full-on OJ Simpson to a pitiful Rolf Harris in the space of a month.
What?
Well, like OJ Simpson's defence got him off the murder. Rolf Harris seemed to every time they turned up in court, someone else was accusing him of something.
I'm not keen to make the point that Rolf Harris is only in prison because he didn't have sufficient representation legally. I think he's a pretty reprehensible human being.
Yeah, it's a good joke though.
Yeah. I just don't like Rolf Harris.
No,
I was in his cartoon club as a kid. I feel robbed. Although, to be fair, that pales in comparison to what other people went through with Rolf Harris. So let's move on and let's not make Rolf Harris jokes.
Against a mediocre Leeds side, Hull's recent habit in handing back the ball through penalties or errors was in evidence again. With that amount of good ball possession, even Widnes couldn't have failed to score a hatful. Oh, and the prick James Childs.
Stop blaming the ref. Rich Langley said nearly 24 hours later and I'm still not able to take anything positive from Hull's caning by Leeds. Shocking defence and multiple errors made it easy for the Rhinos. Anyone could have beaten us yesterday. One point though is the refs who was confusing at best. Without the ref, we don't have a game, but that match was a hot mess of poor decisions and missed calls. Roll on Monday, when I'm praying we get back on the horse.
Mitchell Dart said, some good tries in broken play was most pleasing thing I noticed from the highlights. That is certainly something we've lacked in the past 18 months. Hitting 50 at Hull is something I certainly didn't expect. Not sure what's going on with FC. Shaw's try, though, was pretty good. Stood up Golding with ease. Yeah. Absolutely. When I was watching the highlight of that one, I thought he's not going to score. He's going to get chased down, or at least it's going to be a difficult one in the corner.
Off he went. Phil Nading got in touch. He says, now then, lads, now then, Phil. Right, I'll start with the easy bits first. The hip flask contained fiery, a whiskey, and the pie of choice with my chips and gravy was steak, all washed down with a Worthington's. I would not want to follow Phil into a bathroom for love nor money with what the combinations he puts into his system. Mrs. Nading must have either no sense of smell or be desperately in love with him. Now the hard bit. FC still have defensive.
Or he does most of his shitting on the road in the truck.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. FC still have defence and tackling issues. Going forward was still good, with good meters being made, but was still intent on making silly offloads too early in the set. But Leeds did look good, unlike the ref.
Joshua's granddad, John Scott of 15, said, missing, 1 goal line defence, if found, return to Lee Radford. No defence plus stupid penalties, 3 when actually in possession, lack the creativity, sums up some of the problems. Leeds were allowed too many tries, which consisted of simply reaching over the line, even if there was a defender there.
There you go. Rich Wilkinson says, cracking win from Leeds. It's always good beating Hull. Scoring 50 is always special. Let's see how we go against Widnes. But the season has been pretty pleasing so far. A very happy Rhino here.
Brendan Loftus at BP Loftus said, the FC injury crisis struck again. Okay, it's just one player, but the most important, the amount of missed/weak tackles in the middle of the line can be attributed to Houghton's absence. That's without his passing and scooting. Lots of refs fault from the FC fans, and Charles was at his usual standard.